After giving it some thought, I decided that I'm not only going to restart the Dynasty and add some different teams into the Dynasty, I'm also going to simulate the first year of the season. The reason being is Howard is just a really bad team, but I got some really good players, including the quarterback David Samuelson, and I found after playing the first few games of the season that he's essentially the entire offense, and it's just so easy to cheese by just running with him. And since every other team in my conference is pretty much on the same level of bad as we are, with the exception of us having players that the subs made, I feel like I'm simming the first year just so they can get some more recruits in, so we'll have better answers into the players that we have on the team. I did change up the opening schedule a little bit. Instead of playing Jackson State, we're playing Maryland in the first game. And I decided to redshirt every single player that one of my subs made in order to really get a true feel for how this team will be in the first games that I actually play. So looking at the conference outlook, William & Mary is projected to win the conference. And we also added Georgetown into the conference as well. So they're at the very bottom being a cupcake team. And William & Mary is projected to play Towson in the championship game. And we'll have to see how that goes. I still ended up putting the entire SWAC in Conference USA, and Miss Valley State is projected to win that conference. We'll see how accurate that is. As you can imagine, Maryland beat the absolute crap out of us in the first game, 49-0. And then in the second game, we also got blown out by Northwestern, 57-3. So obviously the season's not starting very well. Pittsburgh beat us 31-9, so it wasn't as bad, except for the fact we only scored our 9 points in the fourth quarter. And then Virginia Tech proceeded to beat us 56-0. No surprise there. We did end up winning our conference opener against Delaware State 14-10, but it took us scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter. We didn't have a game in week 6, so yeah, I don't know why I put it in this video, but oh well. Then we end up blowing out Morgan State 31-6, so we're 2-4 at this point. Then we eke out a victory over winless Norfolk State 23-20. They're 0-7 at this point, so probably shouldn't have been that close. Richmond then blew us out 37-7, so we've dropped to 3-5, and we're probably not going to the conference championship game. We do beat Georgetown in the Battle of DC 27-7, however. Then we end up beating NCAA 31-21. So we're 5-5 now, but then we drop a game to Towson 27-24. Meaning Towson most likely will go to the conference championship game, and then we lose our final game of the season to Hampton 21-7, meaning we are not bowl eligible. We did end up picking up a player in season recruiting, and that's Marky Williams, who's 6'3", 326 pounds out of Maryland, and he seems to be a pretty good player, and we're definitely going to need some help on the O-line, and he's probably going to start day one. So welcome in, Marky Williams. In the MEAC championship game, or it shows up as the MAC championship game, Towson plays William & Mary. William & Mary would actually end up winning the game. I just don't have any recording of that, unfortunately. Brian Bishop, the quarterback from Iowa, ended up winning the Heisman. Jones is supposed to be Reggie Bush, and Martin is supposed to be Darren Sproles. They ended up missing out. And then Chad Nugent is supposed to be Chad Henne, and I totally forget the name of the guy who played at Texas A&M, but he ended up finishing 5th. The biggest shocker here is we had a defensive tackle, Adam Rutledge, win the Best Defensive Tackle Award, and he ended up being a first-team All-American as well, as you're going to see right here. The All-MEAC team had a few more players from Howard, as we had Rutledge and King both make it All-MAC, as did Danny Lewis, the free safety. Unfortunately, however, nobody made it to the second team. In the national championship, you had USC beat the absolute crap out of Iowa. 56-20 was the final there. So the Trojans, who lost the Rose Bowl in real life, ended up winning the championship here. And now we'll look at the season 1 stats. So we actually had our backup running back playing quarterback at one point, and he didn't do too horrible for a running back. Connor Johnson, our running back, had 10 touchdowns and just shy of 1,000 yards. Sophomore Joe Moore led the team in receiving yards, but he didn't have any receiving touchdowns, as we only threw 6 touchdown passes all season, which isn't really all that surprising. Damon King led the team in tackles with 113. Adam Rutledge had 49 tackles for a loss and 14 sacks on the season, so he had a really good year. King ended up having 6 sacks. He also had 2 interceptions to lead the team. So King is coming back next year, and he should be the leader of this defense. As we had a few forced fumbles as well from Bray and Hamby, who both had 3. So we did get some turnovers here and there, but not really enough to really talk about. King also had the lone safety defensively. James Cain, the kicker, was pretty horrible, as was Brandon Warren. But, you know, they're very low overall players, so I'm not really expecting too much from them. Connor Johnson did have a punt return touchdown. So now we go off to the offseason to try to figure things out. And I decided that I'm going to bump down discipline to 25%, to actually 20% as a matter of fact, and then recruiting and training will be 40%. Both of those are much needed, and hopefully they'll be able to help us out as we look to rebuild this team. Adam Rutledge, unfortunately, was a senior, so he will no longer be on the team after this season, which really sucks because we could have used him next year. We ended up finishing 91st in the nation out of, I believe, 119 teams, so it's not as bad as I thought it would be. We had 1 4-star, 9 2-stars, and 7 1-stars, for a total of 17 players altogether. Marquis Williams, of course, is our only 4-star. We also got an athlete and a quarterback, and we didn't fill all of our needs, and I definitely didn't get a kicker or a punter, but we got our needs pretty much filled for the most part. Now, it's going to be much easier than if I would have just redshirted all the user players and then played the season. But even though it's still going to be a tough first season of actually playing the games, I feel like I'll at least have a shot in some of these games. Whereas if I would have played all the games in the first year, I probably would have ended up simming most of the season anyways. So that's another reason I ended up simming. But our team still isn't very good, and we're definitely going to struggle against a lot of the good teams in this first season. So looking at the All-Americans in the preseason, the first team, we have Damon King there as the first team middle linebacker. And hopefully he's able to perform at the level that he performed last year in Sim. But obviously playing the actual games is going to be a lot tougher than Sim, so I'm not really holding my breath when it comes to that. And very unsurprisingly, we didn't have anybody on the second team. So it's going to be a rough season for sure. And then all MAC first team, we have Washington and King there in the first team. And then Connor Johnson, who's going to be the starter to start things out, is on the first team, as well as another player. And then looking at the conference outlook, William and Mary is expected to repeat as MEAC champions. And we're projected 8th in the MEAC, or the MAC, whatever you want to call it. It's the MEAC because we have mostly MEAC teams in here. And then we have Howard in 4th in the East. So we got a lot of catching up to do to some of these teams. So here's our initial schedule. I don't know if I'm going to stick with it or not. Let me know in the comment section if you guys want to see us play anybody else. But really, Virginia Tech's our only tough team on this schedule. We do have Maryland at the end of the year too, though, however. So we'll have to see. I will be posting a list of the recruits that I picked up in the offseason for you guys to rename. So just keep an eye out for that. Patrons and channel members are going to have priority over them. But outside of that, everybody will get a fair shake. But let me know what you think our record will be in year 2, the first season that we're actually playing the games in. But can we actually compete in the MEAC in the first season we're actually playing games in? Well, you're just going to have to keep on watching to find out.